everybody. Fade her out for me. Hey, thanks so much for that warm welcome. I really do appreciate that a lot. It's true, haven't been to Sydney in about 8 years. I'm so glad to be back here. I've had wonderful, magical, heart-filled experiences in your city, and I think that what we're going to do together tonight will be certainly added to the list of those experiences. 40 years? I started when I was 5. What I'd like us to do right now, there's a great feeling in this room. I appreciate what Consciousness Club is doing here and bringing people together in the way that they're doing it. But let's see if we can go ahead and raise the energetic pitch of this field environment right now. And I'd like to invite you to close your eyes if you would. And then I'd like you to focus your attention in the area of your heart, the area in the center of your chest. You can just feel the energy coming from the head down to that area, just like maybe an elevator descending from head down to heart. And now I'd like you to breathe naturally and normally, but just a little bit deeper than you normally would. And as you do that breathing, pretend as if your breath is flowing in and out right through the center of your chest, the area where you have your focus. Now continue with that heart focus and that heart focused breathing, and what I'd like you to do now is to try to feel a feeling of appreciation. Appreciation for this moment right now, all of us being together here in Sydney. Appreciation for the good things in your life. Appreciation for yourself. And just feel that appreciation and breathe it in and out right through the center of your chest. Okay, thank you very much. What we just did together is more powerful than many people actually realize. Because what we did is we came together in heart-focused care and intention, and we activated and radiated appreciation from within ourselves, and that has an impact on the consciousness fields themselves. As this slide says, modern science is now connecting the dots. They know that we live in this web of interconnectivity, all linked together energetically. All of humanity, all the things on planet Earth, the Earth itself, beyond in the solar system and beyond in the cosmos of consciousness. And science is beginning to acknowledge that more and more now. So we, in fact, are all truly connected. What I've come to believe is that we do live in this field of energy, consciousness, that reflects back to us not what we think in our minds, but especially what we feel in our hearts. It's not just our thoughts, it's what's underneath those thoughts, that true essence of our authentic self, that when we feel that, that's what's being reflected back from the field of consciousness. Today we live in a world that's changing very quickly, don't we? Anybody heard of this thing called a shift? Shift in consciousness has been talked about for a long time. What I believe is happening is we are in the midst of a dimensional shift in consciousness. We're moving a dimension and a half in consciousness through a very narrow window of time, maybe 80, 100-year window of time, and we're right in the middle of it right now. It's not an overnight thing. It's not a singular date like this December 21st date, things like that. It's a window, and it's a huge amount of change happening in a very, very short amount of time. It's a good thing. It's the evolution of consciousness itself, spiraling up and spiraling up. When that much change happens in a short amount of time, however, it can create a lot of tension and a lot of friction, a lot of chaos, a lot of confusion. You have the old that's been there for a long time. It's got its rightness, it's got its reason to be there, but then you have a new trying to birth itself right in the middle of the old. And as it tries to birth itself, the old pushes back, and you have these points of tension and friction that happen on global levels and a global scale, and we sometimes feel them within ourselves too. We are, in fact, on the threshold of a major evolutionary step, a cultural revolution. Threshold of a new stage of social, spiritual, and cultural evolution. That's where we are today, and we are living and breathing it right now in these moments and these times. A very, very exciting time to be alive. Because the same energetic momentums that are driving all this change that we often see as chaos and confusion are also putting us in a position where we have the best opportunity we've ever had to grow and change at super high speed, to move beyond the things that have held us back for a long time, to find a newness within ourselves, and to take on some new things that really do help to create this new heart-based world that I see emerging in front of our eyes today. So it's an exciting time, as I said. Chaos, confusion, personal stressors, sense of overwhelm at times, a lot of stressors, feeling like there's too much to do, not enough time. These are all common things for everybody. So if you feel any of that, know that you're not alone. Everything on the planet's experiencing. Every person, every fish, every frog, every tree, every bush, you name it, it's all in the evolutionary cycle right now. So it's okay. It becomes a matter, however, at times of what we identify with. Are we projecting into the future in a fear-based way? Are we lamenting over the past? Are we in judgment over the way things are today rather than seeing into things a little differently through the eyes of compassion? These are all questions and things that we all go through moment to moment, day to day. And as we begin to make these shifts inside ourselves and we begin to make these changes, we in fact do interface with this field of consciousness that I was talking about earlier, and then it feeds back to us a different reality. We are in an era of heightened co-creativity with universal source. So the feedback loops are faster now. What we do, what we put out comes back quicker. And we have opportunities to create a brand new world, and we are in fact doing that. I think we're across the line. I think we've made the changes we need to make. I think the shift is already happening. It's going on. The news is already coming in. It won't be stopped. There's nothing to fear. There's nothing apocalyptic about it. Yes, we may have some harder road to walk. I'm a realist as well as other things, but I'm a realist in many ways. And I can see that we have challenges in front of us. It's obvious to everybody. But I think we have the intelligence and consciousness emerging that will help us deal with those challenges, and we will find the new way, and I think we already are. Other people sometimes have tried to label me at things like futurist, visionary, evolutionary leader. And what I've come to realize recently, actually, is I'm none of those things. What I think I really am now is an aspiring nowist. Just a little guy trying to be as present in the moment as I can possibly be in any given situation, whether it's in a place like this or in a conversation over dinner or sitting on an airplane. It's about being present in that moment. And that's what's most important right now. What's going on internally in me, energetically? What's going on in my thoughts? What's going on in my feelings? What am I creating? What am I feeding the field that's going to reflect back to me? That can sound daunting, but we have a magnificent intelligence inside us that's going to give us the ability to do that, and it's what we call at HeartMath, heart intelligence. This is a real pleasure for me to be able to do things like I'm doing tonight, because what I'm sharing with you now is my life's work and the life's work of my colleagues at HeartMath. We're an organization based in Northern California, starting out with just our own ideas and visions about what we could do to contribute to making this shifting times a gentler, easier process for people. And we started this well over 30 years ago. Founded by Doc Childry, a man who's been my friend and my trusted guide and mentor in many ways for a long, long time. And we started HeartMath way back then, and today we employ about 100 people. We operate all over the world, and I get an opportunity, like I have now, to stand in front of a group in another country on the other side of the world and share what's most meaningful to me. And I don't take that lightly. I think that's fun. I take it appreciatively as an opportunity that I have. And what I'm going to talk about now is the intelligence of the heart. So in this 40 years, I've learned some things about the heart, and I'm going to share those with you now. And as I do this, maybe you'd like to close your eyes and focus on your heart again and see if you can feel some of these same qualities for yourself, things that many of us have felt before, and sort of rekindle that connection to that part of yourself we call heart. We all know that the physical heart is a cardiovascular organ that pumps blood through the veins and arteries, and it's the most amazing pump that's ever been on planet Earth, pumping reliably from the time we're born to the time that we die. Today we know that the heart is a lot more than a cardiovascular blood pump, that it sends powerful healing commands to the brain and to the rest of the body. And I'm going to share some of that with you in just a few minutes about what we've learned about heart that goes beyond just being a pump. And that's just our physical heart. We also have an emotional heart. Some of the emotions that we revere the most, the ones that nourish us the most, the ones that provide the most fulfillment to us, have long, long been associated with heart. There are emotions like care, compassion, love, appreciation, tolerance, forgiveness. Those kind of emotions associated with heart make up what we call the emotional heart within all of us. And there's also a spiritual heart, a spiritual connection that we have through heart. It's been my experience that as spirit manifests itself in my humanness, it's through heart that it does it. So we have this connection within ourselves to something larger, and to me it comes from heart. Taken back into a more practical approach to it, when we are in touch with heart, we're really in touch with our core, with our authentic self. It's that part of us that we go to when we're looking for security and self-security. It's that part that gives us reassurance when times are tough. It's that place inside of us that allows us to move beyond our mediocrity and to be able to do things that we often think we just can't, and then we do. It's where the hero within is born from. It's from our heart. And the last thing I'll say about it now is that what I've come to know is that heart is my own best friend. It's my own most reliable guide that I have to making decisions, big and small. You can open your eyes now if you've had them closed. So heart is that and more. It's intuitive, it's high speed. This intelligence is the kind of intelligence that gives us that guidance, that allows us to discriminate more acutely into what's good and what's not. What choices do I need to make? What's going to be fulfilling? What's going to produce stress? All these things are tied into the intelligence of the heart that operates in a little different bandwidth than just a logical linear intelligence. Heart, brain, mind, all that, there's no competition. It's an integrated system that we have. But the intelligence of the heart does provide some information that's useful to us now, that gives us different insights, different perceptions, different ways in which we can view the world, ourselves, and others. And that comes from the heart. Now, so far, I guess I could say maybe I've been talking about heart from a philosophically inspirational perspective. When we started HeartMath, we'd had 15 years of work on ourselves to arrive at this understanding that heart was important and that it needed to be put out to the world in a different way, in a new way, so that it could be applied in daily living where it was needed the most. We recognized if we wanted it to have global impact and mainstream aspect, that we had to remove it from the confines of just spirituality and philosophy. We had to build a bridge, that bridge that could come from sky to street. The bridge that we chose to use was science. The science that we've done at HeartMath is what we're most famous for. That science was never intended to take the heart out of heart. It was intended to give heart a solid empirical understanding, which would then increase the power of belief. In a way, it would give people the ability to, their mind would allow them to then believe in something that they've wanted to believe in for a long time, which was their heart, and take it out of mushy, squishy associations and put it into a place where it could be utilized as a utility that can improve life, health, and performance, and things like that. And science is what we chose to do that with. A minute ago, I mentioned we know a lot more now about heart at the physiological level, and I'm going to share that with you. But I will preface these comments by saying that I'm actually not a trained scientist. I've been accused of being a scientifically informed comedian. Because I have a southern accent, one writer called me a hillbilly with an expanded vocabulary. Is that funny? I'm playing with you. Let me go past that. So what we've done with HeartMath is our researchers over the years have really been able to map out a whole lot of new understanding about the physiological heart and more. If you're interested in scientific research and you want to see the research papers published in mainstream journals like American Journal of Cardiology, Journal of Stress Medicine, those kind of things, go to heartmath.org and you can get all the research papers you want for free. But what I'm going to do now is give you an understanding, tell you a little story about heart and what it does more than pump blood. Here's what we know today. We know for a fact, and it's not just HeartMath's research. This research was scattered around the research literature all over the world. Our scientists were able to put that together in a meaningful way, add their research to it, and put together a picture, a new picture of heart. So what we know is that the heart, in fact, does communicate with the brain and the rest of the body, and it does it in 4 ways. Heart is really an information processing center in our bodies. I'll describe those 4 ways to you now. The first is neurological. The heart actually has a nervous system. It's studied through the field of neurocardiology. It's a very complex nervous system. Researchers that study it call it the brain and the heart. It consists of neurons, proteins, support cells, and it sends information to the brain and the head. It does it through a nerve pathway. It starts in the heart, travels upward, goes in through the lower centers of the brain, medulla, goes right into the limbic system, which is the mid-level brain where a lot of our emotional processing occurs, and then terminates all the way up here in our neocortex, higher perceptual centers in the brain. So you have brain sending information down to the heart. I used to think that the brain made the heart beat. Has anybody else ever thought that? See, I'm the only one that didn't pay attention in school. You know, I asked the same question in Byron Bay last night, and nobody raised their hands. I'm feeling awkward now. But basically, the brain sends information down to the heart that controls the timing of the heartbeat, but it doesn't make it beat. The source of the heartbeat is within the heart itself. So this nervous system in the heart communicates with the big brain in the head, and there's a closed-loop conversation always happening between heart and brain. When researchers map out the neurological traffic in the body, it's clearly seen that the heart is sending a lot more information to the brain than it ever receives from the brain. That's where the nervous system is located in the heart, where the little dots are. It's the outer, the different ways distributed all through there. Okay? So that's one way, neurological. The second way is called a biophysical communication. If you place your finger on your wrist right now, you will feel your pulse. The pulse is actually a wave of energy created by the squeezing or pumping of the heart that then pushes the blood through the veins and arteries, and it's called a blood pressure wave. Blood pressure wave obviously travels through our entire system, and it influences biological functions. One of the main things that it influences is our brain. Electrical activity in the brain is synchronized to changes occurring in the blood pressure wave. Blood pressure wave modulates, electrical activity in the brain modulates along with it. And this is called a biophysical communication, and that's your second way. The third way is biochemical. In 1983, this is an example of one of those of information that was in the research literature, but who knew? In 1983, the heart was reclassified as part of our hormonal system. The reason was they found it produced hormones. It produces several. One of those is called atrial peptide. Atrial peptide has an interesting job. Its job is to reduce the release of the stress hormone cortisol. So we have a hormone produced in our heart trying to back down a stress hormone. I found that interesting. It also produces another hormone you may have heard of called oxytocin. Anybody heard of that? It's generically called the love hormone. It's produced in greater amounts when people are in loving states, like a mother with a young baby. They're finding now that the heart is probably the largest producer of oxytocin in the body, and that's your biochemical communication. So there's 3 ways right there, and these are what's called hardwired biological communication pathways: neurological, biophysical, biochemical. That's all very interesting and well documented and well understood, but the next form of communication is where it gets really interesting to me. You see, the heart is an electrical organ. When we go to the doctor takes an ECG or EKG signal, they put electrodes around our chest and they get an electrical signal, look at that signal to determine something about the health of our physical heart. The heart produces the strongest source of bioelectricity in our body, 40 to 60 times stronger than the second most powerful source, which is our brain. It's producing a lot of electrical energy that permeates every single cell in our body. Now here's where it gets interesting. The signal is strong enough that it actually radiates beyond the skin out into space, creating an electromagnetic field around us in 360 degrees. So we're broadcasting from the heart in 360 degrees. In my book, The HeartMath Solution, I reported on the Menager Clinic's findings that said they had measured at 8 to 10 feet outside of the body. Our researchers, using magnetometers, which they felt were a more reliable measurement, say 3 to 4 feet. But nonetheless, we have this field radiating from us From the time we're born to the time we die. Everyone in this room right now is radiating that field. We are interconnecting energetically as we speak through the fields we produce in our hearts. And in a room like this, you've got a lot of fields going on. The more coherent we make those fields, the higher the vibratory rate or pitch becomes. Now, you can take this field and you can take a snapshot of it in a moment in time, and you put it through a process called spectral analysis. Spectral analysis measures the ingredients or the frequencies in that field in that moment. We have two different looking graphs. On this side, we have a lot of different frequencies in that moment, but none of them have much power. The available power that's there is being fought over, competing for that power. So there's no singular frequency band that's got any power. It's just chaos. Now, this is a snapshot of a person feeling the feeling or emotion of frustration. Does that look like we feel sometimes when we're frustrated? Well, that's being registered in the electromagnetic field of the heart. That emotion is causing that field. On this side, we have what's called a harmonic sequence. This, by the way, is called an incoherent spectra. Here's called a coherent spectra. A harmonic sequence, you have a stair-stepping down of frequencies. Some are very powerful, but they're moving down in a harmonic sequence, like music that's got harmony to it. By the way, didn't you love the fall that played earlier? They were cool. You guys were good. But a harmonic sequence of frequencies cascading down, working together. This is the snapshot of a person feeling what we were feeling or when we first started, the power of appreciation. This person feeling appreciation produces a coherent spectra. This person feeling frustration produces an incoherent spectra. Now remember, we're broadcasting this information to every single cell in our bodies, but also out into space through the electromagnetic field. So in a way, we're literally broadcasting our emotions all the time. It's one of the ways we communicate with each other in unseen ways, not past words, past body language, and the energetic exchange between human beings and beyond. Part of the reason that we have that sensitivity is that we are literally broadcasting from the heart. So now what we look at is things like, how does my field affect your field? How do our fields affect each other? How do the fields of collective groups like this function? And what do they do? And then taking it beyond, and some things I'm going to talk about in a few minutes near the end of the program, we look at how does the collective field of the 7 billion people on the planet interface with the Earth's energetic fields themselves. So now we're in the era of energetic understanding, part of the newness that's coming in through the new intelligence associated with the shift. We're coming into looking at things through the energetic lens more and more and more. When all this heart-brain-body communication syncs up, we enter a state called coherence. Coherence is a highly ordered state both physiologically and emotionally. At the physiological level, what happens is all the body systems synchronize to the heart rhythms. That's things like digestion, respiration, immune system response, hormonal releases, all synchronize. When they synchronize like that, they're working together. It's a highly efficient state with less energy being wasted. Brain function is enhanced in the coherent state. Reaction speed time, visual field, all those things at a physiological level are heightened in the coherent state. Psychologically, it's a state that we enter into when we are feeling positive emotions. Those are the emotions associated with heart. Care, love, kindness, appreciation, compassion, those kind of things. They put us in a more coherent state. Once we're in that state, then those emotions become more readily available. They begin to flow through us. And they become, in a way, an emotional appetite that we begin to prefer over the angers and the frustrations and the other things that people often experience that they get attached to. So it is through heart making these changes that we develop new emotional capacities as well. I'm just touching on a few things now in relation to this. So coherence is a very good state. It's very healthy. It's a high-performance state. Coherence can be measured. And you measure it through looking at what's called our heart rhythms. By the way, everybody okay with the science right now? Science class all right? Do I need to tell another joke or something? Okay. So, you can measure by looking at heart rhythms. The name for this is heart rate variability analysis, HRV for short. This is measuring the beat-to-beat changes in our heart rhythms, not just heart rate like a heart rate monitor that we get, when we run, looking at our beats per minute. It's measuring the timing between heartbeats. When we go to a doctor says, hey, your heart rate's 75 beats a minute. I never thought about that. I thought it was just sort of beating at this steady rhythm, but that's not true. The timing between heartbeats actually changes between every single heartbeat. And heart rate variability measures this, so you can see these very complex patterns begin to emerge. I'll explain it a little bit more. The scientific term I'm going to use is kabump. Heart loads up, pumps, you see it on EKG, that big kabump. Well, between this kabump and this kabump, it could be 0.523 seconds. Between this one and this one, it could be 0.686, and this one and this one, 0.343 or something. It's constantly varying. We want to allow variability. The more variability we have, the healthier we are. We want the heart to have a wide range of speeds to operate in. We actually lose the variability as we get older. It's a sign of aging, the loss of our heart rate variability. So we want it to move through a lot of speeds, but we also want to learn how to use that heart rate variability in ways that enhance coherence. So what we have here is heart rate variability data. Across the horizontal axis of these graphs, we have 200 seconds of time. The vertical axis is, in fact, beats per minute, 50 beats to 100 beats. And here we have a lot of timing changes happening in a short amount of time. Now, unlike an EKG, these little spikes at the top are not where there's a kabump. There could be several heartbeats on a line. It's just showing that the heart is speeding up, slowing down, speeding up, slowing down, speeding up, and slowing down. It's a chaotic pattern. The part of our physiology that causes the heart to speed up, sympathetic nervous system, says we're going to speed up. The one that slows it down, the parasympathetic nervous system, says no, we're going to slow down. And then the sympathetic says no, we're going to speed up. And the parasympathetic says, I told you, we're going to slow down. And so you have this internal conversation, so to speak, happening, an argument. Now, this is not good for us from a health perspective. It's not good for the autonomic nervous system. It's not good for the physical heart. It causes a release of hormones into the body that when we have too many of them, it's unhealthy. Too much cortisol, too much adrenaline, for example. Now, the person here is again feeling the emotion of frustration. They're feeling frustrated. And it's creating this chaotic pattern. By the way, many things do influence heart rate variability. Movement does. My heart just had to go through all kinds of timing changes to compensate for that movement. Noises will. A lot of things will, but one of the things that researchers didn't really look at, that's one of the most influential things on heart rate variability, is, in fact, our emotions. So this person's feeling frustrated. These are kind of cool, aren't they? They look like a flask or something. You know? But that person's feeling frustrated and their heart rhythm, they're not moving, they're not talking, none of that's going on. They're just sitting in a chair and they've been asked to recall something that made them feel frustrated. That's what happens. The bottom view, you see a different pattern, and that's what coherence, high coherence looks like. And these two graphs are the same person, a few minutes apart. What we did is then ask this person to go ahead now and appreciate something. Don't just feel frustrated, but appreciate some things in your life. And they go and shift their emotional state, and the heart rhythms change. Now we have the heart speeding up, and then naturally releasing and slowing back down, and then coming right back and speeding up again at the right time. It's synchronized. It's like a flock of birds flowing like they do, or two people like those ice skaters in the Olympics, the way they dance and flow. It's got that internal ease and flow to it, a liquidity. This is good for us. It's good for the nervous system. It's good for the physical heart. It causes a release of hormones in the body that actually regenerate us, like DHEA. You've heard of that one, right? Anti-aging or vitality hormones associated with this kind of heart rhythm. So there's a physiological component to that. So one of the things we want to learn to do is to make the switch between there and there. One of the reasons we want to do that is these heart rhythms cascade up into the brain, and they affect brain function. You see, brain function is actually critically dependent upon signals that come from our heart. When we send a signal like the one created through frustration to the brain, it creates a condition in our brain called cortical inhibition. What that means is the higher perceptual centers in our brain start to shut down. The emotional and instinctual brain take over. When we're frustrated, do we make great decisions? Do we often make poor decisions? When we're frustrated or mad, or is that the time we often say things that we wish we hadn't said and we have to go back and clean it up later? Have you ever pushed the button on an email after you got frustrated and went, whoops? You know, those are examples of what happens when we have cortical inhibition. The opposite is true, however. This kind of heart rhythm, the high coherence state, actually creates cortical facilitation. It opens up the higher perceptual centers in the brain, and it allows us to see the big picture. It increases our mental intelligence capacity. So heart and brain work together. Changes in heart, living more from the heart, creating more of a heart-based world actually enhances mental function. There's no competition here. That's one of the fun things about it all. So once we understood all this at HeartMath, we recognized training people to do this, which we did in our training programs already, but giving them extra resources to learn how to make this shift from incoherence to coherence was a good thing. To do that, we created what's called the M-wave technology, E-M-W-A-V-E. This is technology that either works in a handheld unit about the size of a cell phone, that plugs into the computer if you want it to, or a computer-based program. It measures heart rate variability, shows it on the screen for you. Then, once it's got about 20 seconds of data, it comes back in and it analyzes that heart rhythm and determines how coherent it is. It gives 3 states of coherence. Low, which is normal, doesn't mean bad. Low would be me moving around right now. Medium coherence means you're moving more to that high-performance synchronized state. And lastly, that sine wave-like pattern of high coherence is what you're after. So the goal of using an M-wave is to train yourself to know what coherence feels like so you can go in and out of it more easily and utilize that skill in your daily life. And the goal of it is to be in high coherence as much as you can while you use it. So this is something that we've had great success with. It's being used all over the world, everything from school teachers to spiritual practitioners to business people, Olympic athletes. You know, we've sold the M-waves in over, I think, 100 countries now. So it's a lot of utilization of this, and heart rate variability is becoming more popular all the time. So I've been talking a lot about this, so I'd like to do a little demonstration to show you what I've been talking about in real time. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to demonstrate the M-wave, and to do that, I would like someone to volunteer to come up and let me put a little ear clip on you, and you can demonstrate it. Who's the bravest person in Sydney? This lady right here had her hand up first. This chair is a little rocky, but come on. Hi, what's your name?
Jody.
Jody?
Yeah.
Very good, Jody. Thank you so much for coming up. Have a seat, dear. And let me do a little shift in here. Okay, Jody, I'm going to take this ear clip. I'd like you to remove your earring, if you would. I used to collect these and give them to my wife, but now she's got one of everything. You know? I'm just kidding. So what I want you to do, I'm going to... No worries, mate. And I'd like to hook this to your ear. Let's see. Okay, so what I've done is the way the M-wave works, you have software or the handheld unit, and you can see these back in the back of the room after the program, and Chris Hooper, the promoter that has brought me to Australia, is back there, and she has M-waves, and she'll actually let you try it out if there's time for everybody, but she'll have a computer back there where you can try it for yourself. Okay, so it's a sensor that connects to the USB connector on your computer. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to start this, and what we're going to see is we're going to see Jody's heart rhythms in a minute come up on the top view here in real time. The bottom view for just a little bit, you see that's her pulse, and that's going to only stay for a little bit, is to let us know that the sensor is connecting properly. And now we see her heart rhythms in real time coming up on the screen. In a few seconds, these bars will start to change. You'll see red, blue, and green, and you'll see numbers here. These numbers will always equal 100, meaning this is the percentage of time she's been in each of the coherent states. She started out in 100% medium coherence, which is really good. Now she's 50% high, 50% medium. Pretty cool. And that's why, see, she had cortical facilitation because she took that earring and stuck it in her pocket, and that's why. But here she's got a great coherence level going on. So that's good. And she's got a lot of variability, a sign of health, sign of youth. Excellent. Now, I mentioned earlier that I'm actually very excited about being back in Sydney in Australia. One of the things that, I've been here a number of times that I've never gotten a grasp of. What's the matter with you? I haven't even done anything yet. But you see how fast her physiology is responding to the potential threat of me picking on her, right? So that's all it takes. Now think about life. Think about how many things in our day that we don't like or that we project into or that, that we think somebody's going to do or not do, and all the stressors that we have. And every time we go through that, our body is responding instantaneously. And I'm not going to pick on you. I'm not going to do any of that yet. Just kidding. But what I would like you to do now, Jody, is I'd like you to do what we all did in the beginning of the program. And what I'd like all of us to do is while she does this, she's going to focus and then activate a positive emotion. I'd like us to generate a positive emotion and send it to her. Can we do that to help Jody out? So close your eyes, sweetie. He's going to meditate right now. And then get comfortable. Shift your attention down to your heart, area in the center of your chest. Now I'd like you to breathe, just like in breathing exercises, naturally and normally, but a little deeper than you normally would. And as you do it, do the heart-focused breathing. Pretend as if that breath is coming in and out through the center of your chest. Now, feel a positive emotion. Could be appreciation for good things in your life. Could be something like the love or care you have for someone or something, a special person in your life, maybe a pet, something you can really feel care or love for. You can feel that emotion. There are other kind of positive emotions. One's just a good old sense of well-being, like, hey, things are all right. Life's okay. Try to feel a feeling like that. And just breathe through your heart and feel that feeling. And by the way, you're doing just fine. You're doing great. So just keep doing whatever it is you're doing. Okay, what I'm going to do now is stop this and we'll talk about it a little bit. We talk about you, Jody. Okay, first of all, question for you, sweetie. When you were doing the positive emotion, what were you feeling?
Radiance around this area.
Radiance? Like just a good feeling inside, like a radiant, joyous feeling maybe? Okay, that's great.
What I was feeling or what I was thinking about?
What were you thinking about that caused the feeling?
Bondi, North Bondi.
Okay. There you go. See, that's great.
Garden.
That's wonderful. See, you did great. I think we all owe Jody a round of applause, appreciation for coming up. Thank you so much. You did great. So, well, let's look at what happened here. So, she comes in, we hook her up, she's just sort of hanging out, and she's got a kind of a natural coherent state that's happening. It's reflected in the numbers we saw over there. Right here is where I implied, only implied, subtly implied at that point that I might do something to pick on her. And look at what her heart rhythms did, right into the incoherent state. So then we practiced a simple heart-focused technique. It's called the quick coherence technique. It's the simplest of all the HeartMath techniques in the HeartMath system of tools and techniques. But you can use it anytime, anywhere. You can do it eyes open. It's really useful to sort of re-sync yourself during the course of a day. She began to do that. Heart-focused breathing, activation of her heart feeling, and look at this. She went from incoherent to that coherent state just like that. Now, this is an important skill to have during these times. With this much change happening this quickly, we need to learn to go into that place quick now. There are a lot of things we need to have in our life in terms of our spiritual practices, but one of the most important things we can have is something we can do in the midst of our daily activity, something we can activate when we need it, something that increases our performance, gives us a greater connection to that core of ourself, that authentic self, and allows us to perform in life in ways that are going to be fulfilling and meaningful to ourselves and to others. Something like this is a way that you do that. So the M-Wave is just a tool that gives us back that kind of information about our level of coherence, something we learn to practice with. I use my little handheld. It's got audio tones in it. And so it'll tell me when I'm in medium coherence or high coherence. And I put it on my ear and I sit down in the morning. I have a block of time, just like brushing my teeth. It's 15 minutes every day that I go into my heart-focused place and begin to set the tone for my day, to prepare for my day. And what's interesting about it is I don't have to have it. I can do that without it. But it gives me something that makes it more interesting, more fun, and it gives me some feedback. Because I can sit down with this intention that I'm just going to go right straight to the heart. I'm going to slow down all the mental and emotional frequencies and just get right there and make sure I got that down before I get out into the day. And then all of a sudden I realize I'm not hearing any tones. And then I can recognize that I'm not really that deep. I'm sort of playing around the edges of it, thinking about a lot of other stuff, things I have to do, things that, may concern me, that sort of thing. I'm not really that deep inside myself. So it gives me the ability to have some feedback that verifies for me those things. And that's what I use it for. So the M waves are interesting, and I demonstrated in a performance like tonight so we can see in real time when the science comes to life, right? And we have a person up here who's making these shifts in herself, and you can see it reflected in her heart rhythms. So we understand a lot at HeartMath about how to create individual coherence. We also understand a lot about how to do it in organizations and create more coherence in the organization. 4 years ago, we decided it was time to take it to the level of global coherence. To me and to the core of HeartMath, those of us that founded it, it's never been about the business. It's never been about science and all that. It was a spiritual thing. It was a spiritual mission born from my own inner voice talking to me, giving me internal guidance when I was a young man. And that's what it's about. And I've always felt that the way change would work is it would change at the level of consciousness first. It would then filter down into the psychological paradigms that people had that were, the big belief systems or that govern belief systems. It would then refine itself and filter down into our behaviors and our actions, and then ultimately into the systems, the societal systems that help govern the way in which our world works. But that it started here in consciousness. So we, at HeartMath, after doing 20 years of this and having a lot of credibility and a lot of science behind us and a lot of corporate experience and government experience, those kind of things, we said, let's now take it another level and go into global coherence. Let's bring more of the overt spiritual side of HeartMath back into this. But hey, we're HeartMath, so let's put some science in it too. So we created the Global Coherence Initiative. And what this is a science-based co-creative project that is in fact uniting many, many people all around the world in heart-focused care and intention to help create more balanced cooperation and enduring peace, to help offset a lot of the chaos that's going on now. About 50,000 members today from over 100 countries. If you're interested in something like this after I present it, go to glcoherence.org. Membership is free. Put in your email address and your password and you're a member, and there's lots of cool things that happen inside the site and all that as a member. There's some hypotheses that we're looking at through the Global Coherence Initiative. It's about bringing people together, first of all, and it's about helping people increase their coherence levels. And then it's about us using that collective heart-focused care and intention to affect societal change. But I mentioned that we also have a scientific component in it as well. There are many organizations doing something like I just described. We're not trying to be the biggest or the best or any of those type of things. We're just doing our part. And our part often includes some science. So we're testing 3 hypotheses with this. First of all, that all living things are interconnected and we communicate with each other via biological and electromagnetic fields. Touched on some of that tonight already. Number 2, not only are humans affected by the planetary energetic fields, but conversely, the Earth's energetic systems are also influenced by collective human emotions and consciousness. And I'll expand upon this in a minute. Much of the planetary field environment is made up of the collective consciousness of the inhabitants. Meaning this consciousness field that we're drawing from, much of that is made up by what we are putting into it. Number 3 is that large numbers of people intentionally creating heart-coherent states of care, love, and compassion and appreciation will generate a coherent standing wave that can help offset the current planetary-wide wave of stress, discord, and incoherence. You guys in on something like that? Numbers of people that can put out a coherent standing wave to offset some of this other stuff that goes on, the stressful things, the chaotic things, that enough people can actually offset that at a consciousness level. Okay? So, we know for a fact that the Earth's energetic fields affect us. Research has been going on a long time about this. This is a statement from Dr. Franz Hallberg, University of Minnesota, in his 80s now. He's the father of chronobiology. And he has been doing research for years on the effect of solar radiation and the Earth's geomagnetic field on human health and behavior. And he says this: it has become increasingly clear that invisible magnetic influences emanating from the sun and Earth affect life from birth to death. Other research has shown that changes occurring in the geomagnetic fields create these type of things. Brain and nervous system activity is affected by it. That's well known. Performance tasks, blood pressure, heart rate, hormones, physiological things affected by changes in the energetic fields produced by the Earth. All the way down to hospital admissions and societal conflicts, criminal acts, all those things. The other side of that equation, however, is changes in solar activity and geomagnetic activity have also been linked over time and shown to have had a correlation to some of the most creative eras in the history of our world, things like the Renaissance, for example. So it isn't that these fields are out to get us. It's about what we do with those energetic influences. It's neutral. So it can be chaos, confusion, and all that because changes in the fields, but it can also be heightened creativity in ourselves and in society as a whole. It goes back to where I started in the beginning. It's about what we do. What are we feeding the field? What are we putting into it? That's the real difference maker. Now, we're going to take some things a step further. We're doing a project associated with the Global Coherence Initiative where we are really going to be listening in to the Earth's heart rhythms and brain waves. You see, the Earth does produce energetic fields. There are two primary ones. One's called the geomagnetic field. It's what a compass measures. It's created by the spinning of the iron core at the center of the Earth. This field is dynamic. It constantly changes. It moves, it flows, and science is just beginning to understand what it does. There's also another field called the ionosphere. It operates above our atmosphere, about 120 miles up into space. It's very plasma-like, and it changes. These are part of the Earth as a living system. Without them, we have no life here. So they're part of our Earth. Now, we have a hypothesis that we affect those fields, that we are in turn affecting the fields. We know they affect us. We believe we're affecting them. To test this hypothesis, first of all, we saw some interesting data that I'd like to have a moment to share if I could. One of the things that led us to this was some other data. There's a project conducted by Dr. Roger Nelson using random number generators. These are small computer-like devices that randomly churn out numbers and symbols. He has research labs at Princeton, and he would use these random number generators for statistical analysis, but he noticed that sometimes they would change, and he didn't know why. Sometimes the random number output would become less random. He had an intuitive insight, wondering if people could be somehow affecting this machine without knowing how that could be. He set up a network of 60 of these around the world, which are in place today, constantly inputting data back to his research labs. And what he's done is really cool. He's been able to correlate statistically significant changes in the random number generator network with things happening in society, societal events. Things like Princess Diana's funeral, the start of the Olympics, the start of your Olympics in 2000, for example, shows statistically different changes in the random number generators. One day he saw the biggest change ever before, and he's never seen anything like it since, statistically off the charts in what that random number generator network was doing globally. It was on September 11th, 2001, a day when a huge amount of human emotion was put into the energetic field environment. He's never seen anything close to it since. What makes it even more interesting is that the random number generator network began to change and go through its progressions 2 hours before a plane hit a tower. What did we know that we didn't really know we know? A little bit more data. U.S. government has 2 space weather satellites parked on each side of our country, 26,000 miles into space, looking at solar radiation, solar winds, cosmic rays, things like that. They also look back at the power in the geomagnetic field. 2 satellites are depicted here with a red and a blue line. This is the normal pattern oscillating through day and night readings. You see September 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and right here at 9 a.m. on September 11th, 2001, a huge, gigantic spike occurred in the geomagnetic field, followed by days afterwards with a chaotic and more powerful energetic field taking place. There were no naturally occurring causes for this to happen. It wasn't solar changes and solar radiation or solar flares, none of that. It doesn't explain this. It doesn't make this real. Neither of these graphs prove anything. I find them interesting. The reason they don't prove anything is because there was no experiment going on at the time. This is looking at an effect that we can correlate with a possibility. So to take this further, we've created the Global Coherence Monitoring System. We have developed technology that measures changes in the Earth's geomagnetic and ionospheric fields, and we are placing sensor sites around the world. We'll eventually need to have 12 of them. We'll have a ground-based system studying these fields and doing experimentation on the effect of mass human emotion and also on coherent states generated by smaller numbers of people on the Earth's energetic fields themselves. There are 4 working sites today. That's one in Boulder Creek, California, where we are located. That's the one we have in Saudi Arabia. Dr. Roland McCready, head of research with the Saudis who paid for that. And we have one in south of England, in Sussex, in a town called Firle, one in northern Canada. The 5th one is going to be in the neighborhood, at least. It's going into New Zealand, and it'll go in about 2 months from now. And we will eventually have 12. We have funding right now for one more, which will go into South Africa. It's sending back data that looks like this, showing changes in the field. And so our scientists are studying these things. They're beginning to look at these fields and learn more about them so that we can conduct these experiments, which are not trivial. This isn't pseudoscience. It has to be done right, and it will take some time for it to unfold. It isn't like we're slapping up a sensor in the backyard, standing around, focusing on it, and seeing a needle move. This is some serious science done on a very large scale in terms of the implications that can come from this. The way we see it working is as we ourselves create more coherence in ourselves, it then impacts social coherence. Social coherence is more and more people come together and begin to unify like we're doing tonight. It impacts those energetic fields and then comes back down and impacts society in a large way, creating more global coherence. So it's a way that we're looking at this and looking to measure it, but it starts with us. It starts with what we do with our hearts, what we do with this magnificent power and beauty and intelligence that we all have within us. That's where it begins. So we are creating a future world. We are creating a new world in many, many ways, unlike the one we've had before, and it's happening very quickly, and all of us are fully participating in this. It's an important time, and I believe that it's through the heart and through creating a heart-based world that we have the best chance of moving through this change with more poise and more grace, a kinder, gentler process for us and for society as a whole that will birth a new world that's going to be exciting and different, not just the one we see today with new clothes on it, something beyond that that we can't even see yet. I feel it inside my own heart. I know it's real. I know it's true. And the connections that we're doing at HeartMath is just our part to make that difference, to connect things so people come into their own connection with something they already have inside and always have had inside, which is their hearts. So I'm going to have to leave now because my time is up. So I would like to sort of end with where I started, but this time I'm going to offer my appreciation to you. We had appreciation in general that we all did, but I sincerely want to offer you some appreciation now. I want to thank you. I want to thank you for the journey that you've chosen to take, the sacrifices you've made along the way to do what you've done. Because if you're interested in something like this and coming to see this short little skinny guy from the South talk, it says that you have an interest in things that are just not the normal things. And so to get where you've gotten and to get your consciousness to where it is, you've had to work. And you've made sacrifices, and I know that. And I want to thank you for that. I also want to thank you for the contributions you've made to get us to where we are today, to this place in time where the new is coming in, where we are going through the shift in with more poise and grace, where we're feeling it differently. And I want to thank you for what you did to get it here. I don't know you, but I can sense and can acknowledge that in this room there's amazing people doing amazing things, whether it's something big on a big scale or being a great parent. There's amazing things going on in you, and I want to thank you for what you're doing today. And lastly, I want to thank you for the contributions that I believe you will make in the future, because it is people like you that I believe represent the hope for this world. So let me end by simply saying thank you, and thank you, and thanks to all of you. Take care. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much.